Golden Tempo, the Kentucky Derby winner, is skipping this year's Preakness. Crude Velocity, the morning line favorite, said, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to scratch. And for the first time in 108 years, the Preakness is not at Pimlico. We have lots to unpack today here on Pony Pundits. I am Kelly Stewart here with Marco D'Angelo and Sean Alvarez of wagertalk.com. And this is your 2026 Preakness preview. The middle jewel of the Triple Crown, live from Laurel Park. And we'll get into that a little bit more here later on. Saturday, May 16th, post time, tentatively 6:50 p.m. Eastern. Now, remember, this is not at Pimlico. This is at Laurel Park. This is a 14-horse field. And guys, genuinely, this is the most open Preakness I think we've had in, what would you say, a decade. As I mentioned, no Golden Tempo, no Crude Velocity. We've now got 4 horses sitting at single-digit odds, and I think any one of them can win this thing. So let's get into the venue first, because I think if you don't understand Laurel Park, you cannot handicap this race. Marco D'Angelo, there is a massive renovation going on where this race is normally held, as I mentioned, at Pimlico, and I can't wait to go next year because I've heard this place is an absolute and utter party.
Oh, they are. Yeah, and Kelly, it's if there was ever one of the legs of the Triple Crown that you would not be skipping, it would be this one. This is the party one of the 3 when it is at Pimlico, and the infield there is just absolutely insane. To try to put it on comparing other sporting events, Kelly, this would be, and I know you're familiar with this particular event very well, is the Waste Management golf tournament in Phoenix every year. That is the equivalent of the Preakness as far as the crowd in the infield and what is going on. And for our listeners, we were trying to set morning line odds on who would be the favorite between you or our good friend Ariel Epstein as far as running the outhouses in the infield, which is a tradition at Pimlico. And if you've never seen it, just Google it on YouTube. You'll see what we're talking about. But you have to have several cocktails prior to jumping up on the outhouses and trying to run the outhouses. What do you think, Sean? Who do you make the morning line favorite?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it backstage, but, trying to fade Kelly in, kind of a friendly battle. She doesn't want to lose. She's not going to lose. I would have Kelly as the heavy favorite in that outhouse races. And, you hit it on the head. It's the infield at the Preakness is an absolute party. A lot of the people there don't even know horse racing's going on. So it is definitely a perfect correlation to the Waste Management Phoenix Open.
I can't wait. Again, on my to-do list after this $400 million renovation is complete. But let's talk about the difference between the 2 tracks, because, again, I don't think you can handicap this horse race without understanding it. Laurel is a 1-mile oval. It is going to be tighter than Pimlico, has some sharper turns, and it is shorter down the stretch. So as we know, the Preakness is usually 1 mile and 3/16. This now gets shortened from 1,419 feet down to 1,089 feet. So Sean, back to you. I want to kind of talk to me about those deep closers, those horses that aren't going to have that opportunity to make up ground late. Like we saw a Golden Tempo. Maybe that's why they decided this wasn't the race for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in years past, whether it be at Laurel or at Pimlico, where, really speed holds up, and it holds up not only in the Preakness or the Black-Eyed Susan, but it holds up throughout the card as well. But if you really dive kind of deeper into why that speed holds up, Laurel Park and Pimlico don't necessarily have, top-notch horses running there week in and week out. And really they get, $10,000, $15,000 claimers. And I don't necessarily use the angle to handicap all, lower class races like this, but, lower class horses just don't like to pass late. And you really get those speed horses that hold up. But if you look at, the track configuration that Laurel Park does have, we are going to get the entire length of the finish. Or at least of the stretch until that finish line. So at least the closers will get, a little bit more ground to try and make up. But, this is one of those tracks where I'm really watching races Thursday, Friday, even early Saturday, to see if that speed is holding up or if it's playing fair. We got a really fair track at Churchill Downs 2 weeks ago, and I expect to see a similar outcome, at least on how the dirt is playing. But those tighter turns are something to keep in mind when you are supporting a longer or a deeper closer in these bigger races.
One of the things I was reading this morning I found really interesting was how this track really rewards anybody with course experience. And I think there's an angle here because only 2 horses in this field have ever raced at Laurel Park. And we'll get into those horses here in just a little bit. But first, I want to get into these odds on favorites. Marco at 9-2, sitting in post 9. Iron Honor is your favorite here, but not by much.
No, not by much, Kelly. And I just want to add one last thing about the distance at Pimlico and Laurel. The race itself is going to be the same distance. The difference is the length of the stretch, and it's really the stretch itself is not that big of a difference. It's only a few hundred feet difference between the two. But where the difference is in the two tracks is Pimlico has tighter turns. And what that means is over Laurel, it actually benefits closers at Laurel versus Pimlico. Because when you have a wider turn, or as we like to say, a sweeping turn, the dynamics of when you're making a move in the turn, if it's a wider turn, you're getting more momentum when you're coming off the turn because you can run into the turn faster. So when you come off the turn at the top of the stretch, it's kind of like a slingshot for you if you time it right. Where if it's a tighter turn, just picture yourself when, if you ever were riding go-karts and you're trying to make a tight turn, you got to kind of slow up a little bit because the turn is so tight, it's drifting you wide. Whereas if it's wider already, your momentum can carry and you're not losing momentum. So I think it actually at Laurel will help some of the stalkers and closers as opposed to Pimlico. Now, as far as Iron Honor, this is a horse that definitely, comes into this race and people are going to bring up the Chad Brown playbook. Okay. And because he's already done this a couple times where he has skipped the Kentucky Derby with a horse to point to the Preakness. And he got the win with 2 horses in recent years. Cloud Computing was one of them. And I'm blanking on the other one, something voting, I think. Help me out, Sean.
Early voting. Early voting.
Early voting. I knew there was some kind of voting there, but he's had this path. But the difference with those other horses to what Iron Honor has here is the fact that this horse is coming into the Preakness off of his worst race of his career. Now, he's only had 3 career starts. So, we can write one of them off, but you never like to see a horse coming off his worst start coming into a big race. So I think that had more to do with him skipping the Kentucky Derby and pointing to this race was because of his performance in the Wood Memorial. If they fix that, and the fact that he put him in here tells me the horse is okay health-wise, that's a good sign. What isn't a good sign for me is, and we talked about this with a different horse in the Kentucky Derby, there was a lot to be said about an equipment change on Chief Wallaby. And I said the difference with that equipment change on Chief Wallaby was racing good. This was a move to try to fine-tune him to make him better. They're taking the blinkers off of this horse for the Preakness. And when you're making an equipment change off of your worst race of your career, either you found something and you think you fixed it, or you're grasping at straws trying to figure out what's wrong. So that's a little bit of a red flag for me. What he does pick up is big upgrade in jockey. And no disrespect to Manny Franco, but I'm sorry, Manny Franco, you're not Flavian Pratt. He does pick up Flavian Pratt for this race. That's a huge upgrade at jockey. I think this horse, will be there at the end, somewhere on the ticket. I just think that there's a couple horses better than him in this race, and I don't believe he really deserves to be the favorite here. I think it's more of the Chad Brown Flavian Pratt combo, which has been very good, and the fact that Chad Brown has won 2 Preaknesses with this same play out of his playbook.
I understand. It was on my list, at least my long list. And I know Sean's going to get into that horse a little bit later on in the show. Marco and Sean right now, Preak 10, get you $10 off their Preakness packages for this weekend. Coupon code Preak10 over at wagertalk.com. Sean, the horse that I really like, and I shouldn't even say it's the horse, it's Jose Ortiz. He just won the Derby on Golden Tempo. He just won the Oaks. We have a confident rider here with a fresh horse and a price at 5-1. Talk to me about Chip Honcho, and am I maybe buying into the Jose Ortiz hype just a little too much?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to get a jockey for the Preakness, what better route than just 2 weeks ago grabbing the jockey that won the Kentucky Derby. The difference on Chip Honcho and Golden Tempo that he won the Kentucky Derby in is a drastically different pace scenario. Chip Honcho's not going to take far back. He's going to be somewhat up and near the lead. So when we saw, Golden Tempo flying late, he did so by taking way back. So, Jose Ortiz winning at a 26% clip. So it's, not only is he coming off a great Kentucky Derby win, but, he's obviously winning day in and day out on different horses that he's riding. And, Chip Honcho, if you listen to Steve Asmussen speak about this horse, he's a big boy and he's got a high cruising speed. But what Steve wants to kind of back off, and I think what we saw in Chip Honcho and what he did in the Louisiana Derby just this last race back is, Steve just really wants to stay away from that 11-second flat. He wants to see Chip Honcho get into his groove, kind of rip off 11-2, 11-3 furlong type fractions. And when he does that, he just keeps on going. And what he did in the Louisiana Derby, he kind of got pushed from behind by Emerging Market to make a little bit of an earlier move than Luis Saez wanted to when riding Chip Honcho last time out. And all he did was kind of flatten out. He doesn't have that turn of foot, to put away closers or to really gun down those leaders. He's just going to grind them down by having that high cruising speed that Steve wants to see in, those 11-2, 11-3 fractions. But the issue is there's a lot of gate speed in this race with Taj Mahal, with Great White on the outside, with Robusta. There's a lot of gate speed signed up in this race. So I don't think that he has necessarily that early turn of foot to stay, somewhat up and near those leaders. And I don't think he has that big turn of foot or that big closing speed to hold off those closers coming down the stretch. So I do like the horse. I don't think, I'm not going to talk anybody off just using Chip Honcho simply because of Jose Ortiz. He ran not only a great race in the Derby, but he had a great Oaks card and undercard on the Derby as well. So you got a hot jockey, Steve Asmussen, obviously, saw something a little bit on Chip Honcho. He had him over at Churchill Down as early as April 4th, getting ready for the Derby, decided to skip, has, regular workouts. He hasn't missed a workout. So, obviously Steve sees something a little bit more in this horse leaning up to the Preakness, but 5-1, just a little short for me to swallow in the win and with Chip Honcho.
Marco, a horse that's also got an interesting storyline. Taj Mahal, currently 5-1 in post position 1. He is a local horse, and we just saw a female trainer win the Kentucky Derby. Now we have a female trainer here in Brittany Russell, local to Maryland. And this horse has been to this track a few times. Do you think that benefits him? 3 career starts, 3 wins here at Laurel Park. Talk to me about Taj Mahal.
Well, it never hurts to race at your home track, Kelly, not only because the track surface, but your routine doesn't change. So often, horses, when they ship to another track, and that's why trainers always ship in generally for big races a few days before the race, because a lot of times horses will go off their feed. They could spike a fever from, the travel, and they want to get them situated and used to their surroundings. He doesn't have to get used to anything. It's just business as usual for him. Now, it's a nice story, okay? And the horse has done everything asked of him. 3 races, 3 career wins, and he won the Federico Tesso in the last race. Now, 2 points on that. That is one of the prep races. You win that race and you're automatically into the Preakness win and you're in. But I can tell you that over the history of the Preakness, the winner of that race coming into the Preakness, there's been 28 of them win that race and enter the Preakness. They're 1 for 28 in the Preakness. Okay. So generally, that has not been the stepping stone to win the Preakness. Now, we can put the asterisk up. Well, this is going to be a sample size of 1 this year because this will be the only one where that prep race was at Laurel, and that prep race is the Preakness is also at Laurel. So this will be something different from those previous 28. The big knock here is what has been the competition that he's faced in those 3 races. Really wasn't a lot in there. And the key to it, and if you look at that last race, the stake race, he just ran away from the field. He was on top by 10 early. And I can tell you with racehorses that when they're left alone, loose on the lead, you'll hear the phrase, nobody at their throat, they're running, they can relax. Even though if they're going fast fractions, when there's nobody to their, with them, they relax and they braven up. And that's something that helps that horse immensely. I want to see what he does when he's got another horse at his throat. And there's a lot of speed in here. The fact that he drew the inside is going to give him position because he breaks out of the gate like a rocket. So he will get out and will be on the lead or sitting right behind it. But how is he going to handle having pressure throughout the race? Because there is a ton of speed in here. Everybody wants there's probably 5 horses that want to be at or on the lead. And given that there's 14 horses, a full field in the Preakness, those outside horses are going to have to go hard to make the front. And that's going to make early fractions, which if we go fast early, Kelly, I've told you so many times, that's going to help it for anybody that's sitting in a stalker position or coming from behind. The last thing that I'll point out on Taj Mahal, one thing we always talk about in sports betting is we want to have value. Okay. This horse is a good story and, probably would have presented good value had there been a couple other horses in this race. But since we don't have the Derby winner in here and we don't have the buzz horse, Crude Velocity, in here, this horse is going to get a lot of attention because he's undefeated, because he's on his home track, but more so, you said it at the beginning, he's trained by a female trainer, Brittany Russell, who has owned the Maryland circuit the last 3 years. The horse is going to be ridden by her husband. What a fairy tale story. Everybody loves stories in these Triple Crown races. You tell me all of the novice bettors, and I don't want to sound sexist here, but any woman that doesn't really understand horse racing and is going to just bet this race because of a story, who are they betting in this race? We're going to bet A, girl power. We just had a woman win the Kentucky Derby. And wow, what a love story. Jockey and trainer, husband and wife. Yeah, this horse is going to go off much lower odds than it should. And to me, there's just not enough value to put this horse on top, but I will have the horse in my exactas and tries.
So you're not writing him off just yet. You're just not sure that he's holding enough value. Sean, let's talk about some of the horses that were in the Derby before we get into the first one. What is the benefit or detriment to these horses running these races just 2 weeks apart?
Yeah, times have definitely changed in horse racing. Obviously years and years ago, the horses ran kind of into conditioning, and it wasn't necessarily shocking to see horses being run back a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. But really nowadays with trainers, horses really run into their form about a month and a half apart, and you get these horses that are used to a schedule, they're used to being trained into conditioning, and then not only are they having to run 2 weeks later, but they're having to be shipped to that previous track, and now they're having to be shipped to the track that they're going to have to run out on Saturday. So it's not something that horses cannot overcome, but like you said, it's definitely a detriment and a hurdle that they're going to have to cross just to win this race.
Okay, let's get into the first one. Ocelli 6-1 in post 2. He finished third in the Derby, which was a surprise to most of us, but he is still a maiden. So for those of you new to horse racing, that means he has never won a race.
Yeah, I mean, not only never won a race, but I'll take that. If you look at his what he was sold for, he was sold for $12,000 back in October last year, and he's already banked $610,000 in his career. So when you're an owner, when you're a trainer, you definitely want to get your picture taken in the winner's circle and see your horse cross the finish line. But I will gladly fork over $12,000 to watch my horse run in the Kentucky Derby, run in the Preakness, and pay his bills on top of that. But like Marco mentioned, with a little bit of a story, we don't get the Kentucky Derby winner and Golden Tempo running this week. We don't get the morning line favorite and Renegade running this week. But if you look, what did Ocelli do? Ocelli not only ran third in the Derby, but he did so doing exactly how Golden Tempo and Renegade did, while dropping way back. Him and Tyler Gaffalione were given all the favors in the world when Robusta not only cleared Ocelli from the outside in the Kentucky Derby 2 weeks ago, but when he did so, he just kind of ran over, 3 or 4 horses to his inside. And it almost looked like Tyler Gaffalione and Jose Ortiz could have high-fived each other. They couldn't have drawn up a better break from an 18 horse post position all the way on the outside, got to save all the ground and just made that one big run. And when he did so, he did strike the front a little bit earlier. And I don't necessarily think he got tired late. He's got better horses in Golden Tempo and Renegade that ran him down in the stretch. And, like we spoke about earlier in the show, we get a shorter distance. Maybe that one hits him between the eyes a little bit better, and he has a little bit more momentum coming down to the stretch. And obviously the second time around that Tyler Gaffalione is going to ride, I think that, he's going to be able to, push his buttons at the more correct time, and obviously a shorter field. So Tyler's going to have a little bit more options in this race. But if you look back, this horse was 70-1 2 weeks ago. Now he's 6-1. He still hasn't won a race. Like I just alluded to, now he's firing back 2 weeks later. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. I mean, obviously with Golden Tempo, Renegade, and a lot of other Kentucky Derby horses skipping the Preakness and kind of eyeing the Belmont at Saratoga in 3 weeks. So it's a big hurdle to overcome. And, like I said, I don't necessarily want to go from 70-1 to 6-1 2 weeks later and try and win a grade 1 Preakness as the first race that you're going to win in your career. So I'm going to skip the shorter price on Ocelli, but I can see why a lot of people would like this horse running into quick fractions on Saturday.
Marco, I want to talk about a special that you have for first-time buyers right now for just $2 using coupon code PREAK2. You can get Marco's Saturday Preakness and Sports All Access package for just $2. First-time buyers, head over to wagertalk.com and take advantage of that. Okay, Marco, we got to get into this horse because this was crazy. I even texted you and Sean was like, is that the first time this ever happened at the Kentucky Derby? And you guys are like, no, Kelly, this happens all the time. But again, for us casual horse racing fans, you don't see these things either because you're not paying attention or the camera guys aren't on them. But as they were loading the gate, Great White took a spill, and it was kind of we'll call it a traumatic event. I was a little taken aback, but now he seems to be okay. The vet cleared him and said, you get a race in the 2026 Preakness. He is a currently 15-1, post 13. I know that's an awful draw here at this track, but he does have fresh legs.
Well, he does have fresh legs because he didn't race in the Kentucky Derby. And Kelly, what happened in that is, he got anxious, fractious as they were putting him into the gate, and he reared up and he ended up flipping over. Now, anytime a horse in a post parade, going into the gate, whatever, if the horse hits the track, goes down, it's basically an automatic scratch. Okay. It's for the safety of the horse. In everything there. Now, the horse was fine, walked him back to the barn, no ill will there. Obviously, they entered him. He's fine. They breezed him Saturday. Now, normally a horse that would have raced in the Kentucky Derby would not have trained back, had a big workout like he had, but they wanted to make sure everything was okay. So they did breeze him on Saturday, not a super fast one, but you just wanted to make sure that everything was good. He was sound. And I'm sure they took him to the gate sometime during the week to do, they call it, schooling. They'll take horses to the paddock and get them familiar with the different surroundings and what they're going to see on Saturday, and put the horse in and out of the gate to make sure that there's no carryover effects from what happened last time. So not concerned about anything with the gate this week with Great White. What I am concerned with him is he's one of those horses that's going to be involved in the early speed. With post 13 and being a horse that wants to be at or near the lead, he's only got one option, and that is to break out of the gate and go as fast as he can go early to try to get position. And he wants to try to get position before they hit that first turn. Not as bad here at Laurel as it would have been at Pimlico, because those turns are tighter at Pimlico. So you definitely want to, get over as quickly as you can there. But he's still going to have all of the speed inside of him. The only speed to the outside of him is one horse, the 14 horse, who is going to probably be leaving as well. But I see him getting caught up in fractions that he doesn't want to be caught up in. And too fast, too early is going to result in what you saw him do when he raced, in the bluegrass. And that means he'll be backing up in the stretch. So he's fit to go. 15-1 looks inviting, but I think there's a better long shot if I'm going to look for a long shot in this field than Great White at 15-1.
Sean, there's another horse that I laughed with Marco. I was like, Robusta. I don't remember talking about this on the last video, and that's because he was the last horse added to the Kentucky Derby after all of those scratches. So I don't know a lot about this horse. Right now, currently 30-1, sitting in post 4. Break down Robusta for us with some of these longer odds.
Yeah, kind of like I spoke about with the trip that Tyler Gaffleone and Jose Ortiz got. They should be sending a gift card to Christian Torres with the way he broke out of the gate in the Kentucky Derby. Not only breaking out well, but he broke in towards the field, just kind of not only made it difficult on some of the horses that we liked, but just kind of set up the trip for the 3 closers. And I kind of see that happening again in this race. He does have speed from the gate, and that's really the best running style that he's run. He did have a little bit of a stalking trip in the San Felipe back in March. But that's one race out of his 6 career lifetime starts that he's made. And, even if he runs back that race, I just don't think that he has the closing kick, to hold off some of these other and better horses, especially with the amount of speed that we should see from this horse. I think this is a horse that, really could be taking it to the likes of Taj Mahal and Great White earlier. But I really just see this horse as, a horse that's going to set up the pace and not necessarily going to be around late. So I see that 30-1, and I would, if it was 60-1, I probably still wouldn't place a $2 wager on this one.
Fair enough. Sometimes it's just best to leave these horses off your ticket, but we have a pair of long shots here that I wanted to talk about. Marco, before you get into Talkin at 20-1 in post 5, please let everybody know what you've got going on for the Preakness over at wagertalk.com.
Well, Kelly, we've got our Saturday all access package. What that'll include will be all of our sports plays, our Preakness selections, a few of the races on the undercard as well on Saturday in the Preakness. You'll get everything for one price. $39 gets you the entire day. Now, if you're a first-time buyer at Wager Talk, you can pick that up for just $2 if you use coupon code PREAK2. That's the price of a $2 win ticket. You'll pick up my entire card. If you have already bought at Wager Talk, well, we got you covered too. You can use coupon code PREAK10. And not only can you use that coupon on me, but you can use it on Sean as well and pick up our Preakness package for Saturday, $10 off. So that is the way to go. And of course, if you want to get all of my plays, we are running the special site-wide where you can pick up a 3-day all access package for $49. That's the best value going if you want to action all weekend long, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would be the plan. You'd pick up anything we had Friday, and if we have anything on the Black-Eyed Susan, and the Black-Eyed Susan is the Philly equivalent of the Preakness, you can pick that up with our Friday, Saturday, Sunday package for $49. And Kelly, we're going to talk about a long shot, and you like those big long shots. And number 5, Talkin comes in, morning line of 20-1. And Kelly, I just don't understand the morning line odds maker putting this horse at 20-1. This is a horse that has broke his maiden at first asking. First start out of the box, wins and breaks his maiden. After that, the horse races in nothing but graded stakes. He's raced in 2 grade 1s and a grade 2 and a grade 3. He's been fantastic so far with his starts. This is a step up, winning Preakness, a Triple Crown race. He didn't race in the Derby, obviously, but this is a horse that's already raced against Kentucky Derby caliber horses. You look at some of the horses that he's raced against in previous races. Further ado, you've got all of the some of the big guns here. Just to mention a few, ran third to Further Ado in the Bluegrass. If you remember the Bluegrass, he only missed second by a length and 3/4. The horse that won, Further Ado, won by 11 lengths. So he was right there at the finish line with the rest of the horses in that field. Tampa Bay Derby, he finished 5th. In that race was the Puma. You had Further Ado also in that race. Those were 2 big contenders for the Kentucky Derby. Puma was going to be one of the betting choices before it got scratched. Also, 2 finished second to Napoleon Solo, who is in this race, and won his maiden. So I like this horse. His buyer speed figures, last 2, 85 and 87. This is the 3rd start off of a layoff. I've told you guys over and over, I feel the 3rd start off of a layoff is the horse's best in his form cycle. And he's picking up Irad Ortiz Jr. That's not a bad pickup jockey-wise. Joel Rosario had ridden him in his last 2, and Kendrick Carmucha had ridden him before that. Nothing against those guys, but Irad's the best in the business, him and Flavian Pratt, and then there's everybody else. So this is a horse, 20-1. You give me 20-1. There is value plus EV there all day long, but I don't think you'll see 20-1 on Saturday, Kelly, because I think there's going to be too many astute horse players that see this as a major overlay.
Sean, the horse that you like is your long shot. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I like him too. And not just because his name is The Hell We Did. I like the post 7. It gives him a clear path to the outside. And we know this horse is a closer. Tell us why you like The Hell We Did.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that jumped off the page to me was the fact that, Luis Saez is not riding the likes of Chip Honcho. You get Jose Ortiz, and, that's great, winning the Kentucky Derby and getting that jockey. But I would assume that this mountain was named before Jose won the Kentucky Derby. So it's interesting to see Luis Saez jump over to the number 7, The Hell We Did, and riding for a trainer that not a lot of novice bettors and handicappers are going to know in Todd Fincher. Todd Fincher is a really kind of a lays below the radar, trains over at Sunland, at Zia Park. He does really well with young fillies and young colts. And then he usually gets them into, the sales ring, in their 3 and 4 year old year. But after winning an allowance race at Sunland, and he did so by 13 lengths. And granted, even though it's Laurel Park, even though it's not necessarily the Kentucky Derby or some big field, this is a step up in competition. But Todd Fincher, I think he wanted to see, what The Hell We Did look like against better competition. And that's why he shipped him up to Keeneland for the grade 3 Lexington. And while that's Kentucky, technically a Kentucky Derby prep race, not a lot of horses sign up, for the Kentucky or for the Lexington while they're trying to get points, to get into the Kentucky Derby. This is a race that's about 3 weeks in front of the Kentucky Derby, and the points are really low total. So I really think that Todd Fincher eyeballed that race to see how he did against better competition at kind of a grade 1 track like Keeneland. And, Luis Saez just kind of let, the horse the hell we did. It's always weird saying that just over and over, but just kind of let him run his own race. And, it's a little bit closer to the pace, but he settled into his stride. And I thought he ran well, losing by a little over 2 lengths. But I think what we saw from what he did at Sunland, at Zia Park, and more of kind of bull ring tracks with those tighter turns, that Marco spoke about earlier in the show. Those tighter turns are a little bit more difficult for closers to close into, and he's done so twice from off the pace in a sprint race. So he's kind of already had his back against the wall and overcome those. So like Marco and myself has spoke about, I think he's going to have very quick fractions to run into, and he gets a really top jockey in Luis Saez to run. So, one run coming down the stretch at 15-1, I will definitely have a couple dollars riding on the hell we did to win the Preakness.
All right, and just like we did for the Kentucky Derby, we're going to do a team ticket trifecta here. Marco, I'm going to let you go first. Remember, if you're looking for a special right now, Preak 10 gets you $10 off Sean and Marco's Preakness packages. Marco, tell me why you like Incredible, currently 5-1 in the 12 post.
Well, Kelly, I refer to myself as a trip handicapper, and by that, I mean major part of my handicapping is going back and just scouring the replays. Yeah, we read the racing form, we look at the speed figures, but I go back and watch replays. And what I do when I watch the replays is I'll watch the same race probably 10 different times, looking at individual horses, just fixated on them only through the race. Because so often when you're watching a race live, you're naturally focused on the horse you bet on. Then the second time you watch the race, you're kind of focused on the horse that won the race. You want to see the trips that every horse got. And I'm going to give everybody a homework assignment here. Go back and watch the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to have you watch 2 horses in this particular Kentucky Derby. One is racing today and one is not. The one that is not was Chief Wallaby, the horse that, I bet in the Kentucky Derby. And if you watch that race, you'll see what happened to him and why he finished 4th in the race. But if you go back and watch Incredible and watch him throughout that race, when he was running, he was at the back of the front end of the pack of horses. There was that big gap to all of those horses that were closing from the clouds. He was at the back of the other horses. So he had a lot of ground to make up. But when he did make that ground up, he went through bobbing and weaving through horses, and he had an opening at the top of the stretch, and he went to go through it. And right alongside him was Renegade. Those 2 horses started their flight down the stretch together. However, Renegade decided and started to bear in, and by bearing in, I'm meaning that he went to the inside and started to ride into Incredible. And what he did is took Incredible sideways, and they were still going forward, but as he was pushing him sideways, he was taking him away from the hole that was open. And Incredible had to wait, and Renegade got to go through, and Renegade went on to look like he was going to win the race until his brother caught him with Golden Tempo. Incredible regained his composure, got back in stride because he had to check the horse. And once he got his momentum back, he was pacing to the wire again. And that tells me the horse finished 6th in the Derby. You don't have the winner in the Derby. You don't have the 2nd place horse in the Derby. You do have the 3rd place horse in the Derby who got a very good trip to finish 3rd. The 4th place horse in the Derby, he's not here. That was Chief Wallaby. And the 5th place horse who raced very well also in the Derby, Dan and Bourbon, is not here. That means from the Derby, the 2nd best horse is here. And that is Incredible. And I think Incredible sitting on a major race. Riley Mott did not plan on coming to the Preakness, but the horse has been working so well in the morning that he's feeling good. No ill effects from the Derby. He's decided to put him in. And I'm going to go old school on you guys. You know, we talk so much about the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness running it back in 2 weeks and how hard it is on horses. As hard as that is on horses, over the years, when these horses were racing back in the Preakness, the horses that were generally doing the best were the horses that did run the Derby and came right back in the Preakness. You saw the same form. Horses that, you know, hit the board in the Derby were hitting the board in the Preakness. I think you're going to see a big race from Incredible on Saturday. Go back, watch the replay. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Sean, if someone's going to buy your Preakness package on Saturday, what can they expect from you from a handicapping side of things? What should they be looking out for and so forth? Right now, if they use coupon code PREAK10, they get $10 off your package for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's very similar to the Kentucky Derby. Not only are you know, the three of us breaking down the Preakness, and obviously all the eyes and attention are on that Grade 1 race, but we've got 14 races both on Friday and on Saturday with a big undercard. And that's usually where I like to cut my teeth and really try to get value. Obviously, we're gonna try and nail the Preakness as well. But you know, I like to play pick threes. I like daily doubles, exactas, and trifectas here and there where I see value. Not only do I love a horse, but you know, he's gonna pay well. I'm not gonna you know, let's single a 1 to 5 and pat myself on the back for, you know, taking such a high favorite. Let's find a little value on the undercards and maybe even get a, you know, a pick 3, a pick 4, a pick 5 rolling into the Preakness where we might have some strong opinions and some big prices to get paid out. So head over to Wager Talk, use that code PREAK10 for $10 off. You can use that on the Friday card, you can use that on the Saturday card, or you can use it in the Friday and Saturday package as well. And what I'm going to give you is those plays that I spoke about, you know, throughout the undercard. But I'm also going to give you my top 3 selections for all 28 races on Friday and Saturday. So head over there and make sure you use that promo code PREAK10 for $10 off.
Now, I know the comment section is going to go nuts because I already made fun of you about it when you sent it over to me, that you're going to be the chalk eating weasel here. And let him have it, guys. Come on, just bring it on. We can hear it. I understand, though. Sometimes the favorite is the favorite for the reason. Now, while Marco didn't love this horse, he said it was going to be in all of his tries and supers. Tell us why you like Iron Honor.
Yeah, I mean, for the audience that has seen our shows, not only in the Kentucky Derby but in the years past, it is no surprise that I like this horse. I love the human connections of it with Flavien Prat that Marco spoke about earlier, and the Chad Brown, you know, playbook that Marco scoffed at me that I'm going to talk about. But you know, when Chad Brown does skip the Kentucky Derby and not just try and shove his horse and try and win that run for the roses in the first Saturday in May, you know, he has had that success. Like Marco said, with cloud computing and early voting, he's done so twice in winning the Preakness with this angle, and you know, enticing Flavien Prat to ride back here as well. And if we really, you know, look under the hood on that race at Aqueduct in the Grade 2 Wood Memorial, you know, Iron Honor was hung out wide. The trip note says 4 path. I think he was more 5 or 6 paths going into that first turn. And when he was trying to make that turn, the horse to his inside tried to drift out. And when he did so, he bumped Iron Honor right in the side, right in kind of, you know, and as we've, you know, had in the past, when you get the wind knocked out of you, it takes a little bit to kind of get your breath back, get that stamina back. And, you know, it kind of shows in what Iron Honor did in that race. He, you know, kind of made his middle move into kind of quick fractions, you know, 43 and 1, 112 flat. And when he did so, you know, it just kind of spit the bit turning for home. And I really think that bumping going into the first turn kind of took him out of that race. And now we see Chad Brown, you know, drastically opposite, like Marco said, with, you know, Chief Wallaby adding the blinkers going into the Derby. We get the blinkers off here. And what I really think that, you know, they're trying to do is get this horse to settle, you know, around his competition and not just be so focused on what's in front of him. And I think he's going to make that that big run. Hopefully not going to be as far back as we saw, what Renegade and Golden Tempo did 2 weeks ago in the Derby. But I do think that he's going to allow those front runners to go out, set those quick fractions, try and get Flavian, to get this horse to settle kind of mid-pack in a little bit of a stalking position and make that run most likely, into that stretch house turn and kind of separate himself from the horses coming from the back. So I do really like this angle. I hate the 9-2 and swallowing the chalk, but I do think that we're going to see a big effort from Iron Honor and Flavian Pratt.
All right, now my turn, even though Sean already broke down this horse, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Chip Honcho, 5-1. Yes, I'm a Jose Ortiz homer. That's okay. I think this jockey is on absolute fire, and he knows what this horse is capable of. That's right. This is a horse that ran second in the Risen Star back in February, finishing 5.5 lengths in front of the eventual Derby winner, Golden Tempo. I'm going to say that again. The horse who won the Kentucky Derby 2 weeks ago was 5+ lengths behind Chip Honcho at the same distance, the same surface back in February. I know Sean mentioned the Louisiana Derby, which was not great, but then they elected to skip the Kentucky Derby, and they have pulled one of the cleanest post positions here in the Preakness. Give me Chip Honcho. Just wanted to say thank you guys to everybody who jumps in the comments section. If this video helps you, if it is something that you like and want to see more of, be sure to let us know. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And of course, drop your Preakness trifecta in the comments. We're going to read them, and maybe you can get me to respond. We'll be back Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, live here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel with last call for a full day of Preakness coverage. We will see you then.